Hello, everyone. Welcome to Assignment Tracking Checklist brought to you by the Academic Resource Center at Georgetown University. If you are feeling overwhelmed by the information being thrown at you during your first week of classes, then you are in the right place. Today, we'll be discussing what proactive steps you can take during the early stages of the semester to get organized. Before we dive in, let's take a look at the 5 primary steps of our new semester checklist. The core of this checklist is focused on figuring out how you can learn your assignment information, how you can keep track of that information, and how can you use that information to keep from getting behind during the semester. The first few weeks of the semester can seem misleading in how few major assignments you need to complete, and that's because most major assignments, such as tests and papers, tend to rear their heads a few weeks into the first month of classes. So by developing assignment tracking systems now, when you have the time to work on planning, you can make those busy periods feel much more manageable than they otherwise would be. Step 1 in your new semester checklist is to figure out how each professor communicates new assignment information. This seems easy, right? And it can be, but it really depends on your professors. As you may know, each professor has their own communication style and their own preference for how they communicate with students. So in order to get a sense of where you should be looking for deadlines, make sure that you look through each course Canvas page as well as looking through each course syllabus. That makes the first 3 steps of our checklist. Many professors list homework assignments on the course Canvas page, but even within Canvas, this information is often hiding. There are a few key pages that you should look out to see how your professor is using them. The first is the syllabus page, which you can identify from the menu on the left-hand side under your course page. Many professors post a more traditional syllabus on this page with the expectation that students will scroll through the syllabus to find their assignments. More traditional course syllabi begin with course information, including professor, contact information, office hours, grading policies. Several pages in, you'll typically find course assignments. Some professors may just include major deadlines, or they may include every weekly homework assignment. Either way, it's important to understand how in-depth the syllabus goes in laying out your due dates. If your syllabus isn't on the syllabus page, it may be lurking under the files page. This is the section of Canvas where professors can upload documents for students to access, including the course syllabus. Even if you already know where your syllabus is, you should still take a look at this page to see what else is available. Sometimes professors put readings or paper prompts here, so taking a look as to whether or not this is being used is always a smart move. You should also take a look at the assignments page, which can be found from the menu on the left as well. Some professors will upload every homework assignment to appear in Canvas in this section. If that is the case, you can view these assignments in the Canvas calendar or even add them to your Google Calendar. And we'll be getting how to embed your Canvas calendar into GCal in just a little bit. So after you have a clear sense of how to find out what your assignments are, the next step is to determine how you're keeping track of day-to-day assignments. By day-to-day assignments, I mean daily homework such as readings, worksheets, and problem sets. The first part of this is to identify whether you will use a paper planner or a digital format. You want to identify one platform where you can keep track of all of your homework so that you don't need to consult different syllabi every time you're sitting down to do homework. After that, you can enter in your daily assignments for the upcoming week. And then if you've decided to go the digital route, you can consider adding your Canvas calendar to your digital calendar. There is no right or wrong when it comes to choosing a digital format versus a physical planner. A physical planner is easy. You write down what your next assignment is and when it's due. But depending on how your professors are using Canvas, digital might be easier. There is a Canvas app, so downloading this to your device can make it easy to look at all of your courses in one place. Some other digital formats are pictured below. To the left here, we have a template on Notion, which can not only show your assignments in list form, but also in calendar form. On the right, we have an assignment tracking template from Google Sheets. This format makes it easy to sort your assignments either by class or by due date. If you're curious about either of these templates, take a look at some of our other webinars where we go over how to create your own versions of these templates, and I'll mention the names of those webinars at the end of this presentation. Once you've chosen a platform, write out your homework for the next week. Getting in the habit of looking at your deadlines a week ahead of time can help you avoid missing those deadlines. I feel like in high school, the norm is to look at your homework for the next day, but that doesn't really translate to a university setting because of how some classes may only occur once a week, or they may occur every Monday and Wednesday. You need to really give it a week view to have a sense of what you need to do for each course. Some students like to enter in every homework assignment for the entire semester, but this can get tricky. Homework deadlines change pretty frequently for all kinds of reasons. Maybe class is canceled due to snow. Maybe the professor gets sick. Maybe the class spends too much time on one reading and needs to skip to the next. I tend to recommend focusing on major assignments for the whole semester, but just looking at the homework on a week-to-week basis. Getting into that habit of actually looking at the assignments each week is going to be more beneficial anyway than entering them all in now and then ignoring them when it comes to a new week. If your professors are using Canvas heavily, you can consider embedding your Canvas calendar into another calendar, such as GCal, Google Calendar. I'm going to show you how to do this for Google. So you navigate to your Canvas calendar page through the left-hand menu. On the calendar page, there is a link labeled Calendar Feed in the lower right-hand corner. So down in this corner, you have this link. Clicking on Calendar Feed will provide you with a link that you can add to several other calendar programs. So let's take a look how to add this to Google Calendar. In your Google Calendar settings, navigate to Add Calendar section, clicking from URL, which you can see on the left-hand side here. You can then paste the URL from your Canvas calendar feed, and Google will create a new calendar for all of your assignments. Other programs have this option as well, so if you're using a different calendar program, take a look to see if you can identify how to add a new calendar from a URL. After you've thought about your daily homework, determine how you're tracking major assignment deadlines, including test dates and paper deadlines. Identify whether you will use a paper planner or a digital format. Some students like to keep all of their assignment information in one place, but others prefer to have different tracking systems for long-term versus day-to-day. Again, there's no right answer. It just depends on what you're most likely to use and what works best for you. I know I tend to do paper for day-to-day, but digital for the whole semester. After you've decided how you're keeping track of this information, enter in all major assignment due dates for the upcoming semester. So here we have our Notion template again. This Notion template includes only assignment deadlines for tests, problem sets, and essays. I consider all of these to be major assignments because they all require more than a few days of preparation on my part. They also equate a more significant portion of my final grade. By isolating these major deadlines in one tracker, I can get a better snapshot of what my semester looks like and when I should be working on what. Having all of these major deadlines next to one another gives me a really good sense of when I'm going to be overwhelmed in the semester, which leads me into our next checklist item. Identify your busy periods throughout the semester. Look over when all of your major deadlines overlap, and if you feel ready to do this, add dates to your calendar for when you're beginning to work on larger, major assignments. So look at those times when major deadlines overlap. Here we have a snapshot from my paper planner where I have two major tests on the same day, one for sociology and one for calculus. They're both serious tests. They're both on the same day. So not only should I avoid cramming no matter what, but I also can't procrastinate for both and be well prepared ahead of time when they're both on the same day. So these are the kinds of assignments when it makes sense to add sort of a start date for when I'm going to start looking at them. I know that if these exams are on a Friday, logically Sunday is going to be when I sit down and figure out what I'm going to be focusing on when. So I just am going to add to my planner that on that Sunday before, I need to sit down and look over both of these exams and start working on them. So I'm not coming up with a super detailed plan day by day at this point because who knows where I'll be when it's time to start working on these. But I know that this is the day when I need to look at these assignments and be prepared. This is a strategy that can be really helpful for students who tend to lose track of deadlines and they sneak up on you. If instead you only add your due date, it's easy to forget your due date. If you add a start date, that just kind of reminds you to think about a major assignment before it's too late. The next step in our new semester checklist is to loosely time block your study schedule. You want to identify which days of the week you will prepare for which course, and identify when each week you will focus on long-term assignments. This is definitely sort of the leveling up version of new semester checklist. Everything before this point, I think, is a good minimum to do for every new semester. This step can be really helpful as you're trying to figure out how to use your time, but can be more complicated as you're getting a sense of what your club commitments look like, and even getting a sense of how much time you need to spend working on each class. So we start with time blocking by looking at our course schedule. So what we have here is a Google Calendar where I've put in all of my courses, just when those class meetings are, because those are essentially the structure of my days. I have 9 to 3:30-ish on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then classes 2 to 5 on Tuesday, Thursday. So I know that those are blocks of times when I need to be in certain places. Based on the classes, I'm trying to figure out when I want to work on homework assignments. So for these classes, I know that I'm going to be doing more homework on the Tuesday, Thursday days than I am the Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And part of that's because I know Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm going to be more tired because I've been up earlier and I've been going to more classes. So I want Tuesday and Thursday to work on my daily rote homework because I'll have more brain power. After that, I'm adding in week to week just what I have to do in my life. So for this particular week, I have some club meetings, I have a game night with friends. It feels weird to add those things to your schedule, but it's important to make sure you leave time for yourself and you leave time for connecting with others. So I add those to the calendar. And based on that, I can identify a few times during my week that could be when I work on major assignments. This means, when am I working on those big papers that are due in a few weeks? When am I beginning to study for those upcoming classes? So for this, I've chosen Wednesday evening and Saturday during the day because those are when I have big blocks of time where I think I can muster up some brain energy. I've also left this schedule kind of loose. I have this whole Sunday morning block when I can do whatever I need to do. And this can change week to week. So I definitely would encourage you to kind of experiment with thinking about when are you going to work on what to make sure you have that balance in your schedule. But this might not be something you can work on until you get a better sense of how your classes are looking. So here we have our full new semester checklist. We have our 5 major points and then our kind of sub points underneath. And again, going through at least these first 4 major points will put you in really good shape for the rest of the semester. And if you're feeling ambitious, going into that 5th point as well can help you really approach the semester in a healthy, proactive way. If you're interested in some of these templates that we were taking a look at, you can check out some of our webinars on our YouTube page. So we were showing some templates, from one titled Tracking Deadlines with Google Calendar, one that is Keeping Track of Assignments with Google Sheets and Excel, as well as Tracking Deadlines using Notion. And these webinars, we go in more detail about how to set up those templates, depending on which programs are your preference. Another thing to keep in mind is our next webinar, which is on Wednesday, September 6th from 4 to 4:30 p.m., titled Tracking Assignments with OneNote. So we're going to go over how to use OneNote, which is Microsoft's note-taking platform. We'll do a basic introduction and then talk about how you can use it to track assignments so that you just have one Microsoft hub. If you don't know whether or not you have OneNote on your computer, take a look. If you have Excel or Word, there's a good chance you have OneNote as well. So we have time for questions. If you have any questions, feel free to add them to the chat. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us today, and best of luck with your first week of classes.